Have you ever found yourself just staring at a really dense block of programming code, trying to reverse engineer some complex mathematical formula?
Oh, yeah. The kind that's somehow hidden inside just a complete jumble of asterisks and slashes and parentheses.
Exactly. You're reading a function, and the comments above it look like, I don't know, an exploded typewriter.
It's a massive cognitive drain. You're sitting there squinting at your screen, trying to figure out if that extra asterisk means multiplication or bright,
Or if it's a pointer.
right? Or if the original developer just sneezed while typing.
Yeah, it really is an exhausting way to work.
You are essentially doing these mental gymnastics just to get back to the baseline of what the math was supposed to be in the first place. You have to translate the code back into pure mathematics in your head before you can even begin to evaluate the logic of the program itself.
And that cognitive bottleneck is the exact problem we are tackling in today's deep dive.
It's such a crucial topic.
It really is. We are unpacking a genuinely fascinating 2026 presentation by a developer who goes by the handle at LUK036. The presentation is titled Documenting Beautiful Equations in Rust and Python.
A great title.
Yeah, and our mission today is to explore exactly how modern developers are finally bringing beautiful, highly readable LaTeX equations directly into their code documentation.
Because, I mean, documentation is ultimately the bridge between human intent and machine execution, right? When that bridge is built out of unreadable ASCII art math, knowledge just gets siloed.
To give you a sense of why you should care about this, reading code without readable math is, well, it's like trying to appreciate a symphony by only reading the sheet music.
That's a really good way to put it.
Right, sure, you can do it if you are highly trained, but you are not experiencing the actual music. When equations are rendered properly in documentation, like seeing the beautifully formatted spread formula.
Oh, where the S of V1, V2 is rendered visually.
Exactly. You see it as 1 minus a fraction, with the squared dot product on top and the squared magnitudes on the bottom. When you see that, understanding isn't a puzzle anymore. It becomes instant. You just see the geometry.
Yeah, that visual clarity allows the brain to process the concept spatially, and mathematically rather than algorithmically.
Which is how we naturally want to read it.
Exactly. But getting that visual clarity into a raw programming environment has historically been a remarkably difficult problem to solve, mostly because code editors were designed for plain text, not typesetting.
So, to really appreciate the solutions the author found for Rust and Python, we first need to understand the baseline tools developers have historically been stuck with.
Right. The baseline is important here.
The presentation lays out 4 main contenders. Let's start with Unicode math. This is the simplest approach because it requires absolutely zero setup.
Not at all.
Since it uses standard text characters, it works everywhere. But trying to use Unicode to write out advanced algorithms is like trying to build a skyscraper using only a standard hammer.
You're just lacking the right tools.
Yeah, you can hit things, but you can't weld steel beams. It completely lacks the spatial and vertical formatting required for complex fractions or limits.
And that structural limitation is exactly what forces developers to look for workarounds, right? When Unicode breaks down, they often move to the second option, which is image-based documentation.
Ugh, images.
Yeah, they render the map somewhere else, take a screenshot, and just drop the image into the
Oh.
documentation.
It's so clunky.
It is, but the only real pro here is that it doesn't require the reader's browser to load any JavaScript.
The cons, however, are brutal. I mean, it is completely unscalable. Think about it. What if you need to change a single variable name from X to Y?
Oh, it's a nightmare. You have to go find the original LaTeX file, re-render it, take a new screenshot, and upload it all over again.
Just for one letter. Plus, an image is completely unsearchable. You cannot hit Control-F to find a specific mathematical term hidden inside a JPEG.
And when documentation is unsearchable, it creates a massive barrier to entry for anyone trying to learn the codebase.
Which leads us to the heavyweights, the actual rendering engines that solve these problems. Option 3 is MathJax.
Right, MathJax.
This is the native choice for Python's Sphinx documentation system. It supports full LaTeX formatting, which is, the gold standard for mathematical typesetting.
The trade-off, though, is that it requires a relatively heavy rendering process in the browser to draw the math.
Which brings us to option 4, KTeX. The presentation notes that KTeX is the fastest option.
By far.
Yeah, it is CDN hosted, meaning the rendering script is delivered incredibly quickly from a content delivery network, so the math appears almost instantly. But there is a massive catch.
There always is.
In Rust, utilizing KTeX requires manual header injection. It is not just a simple toggle switch.
And these four options perfectly set the stage for how Rust and Python handle this identical challenge of rendering complex math. They take entirely different philosophical paths to arrive at the same destination.
Okay, let's unpack this. Let's start with the Rust path. Rust is the systems programming darling, famous for its incredible modern tooling. But implementing KTeX in Rust requires what the author describes as a finicky 3-file setup per repository.
Which sounds completely unrust-like.
It really does. You have to edit the .cargo/config.tommaill file just to pass specific flags to the documentation generator. Then you have to touch the cargo.toml file. And finally, you actually have to create a custom source/docheader.html file.
A literal HTML file just sitting there.
Yeah. That HTML file is what manually injects the KTeX auto-rendering script into the final documentation. Only then can you start using the native $$ and $$ syntax to write your equations.
It's quite a detour.
I have to admit, I'm genuinely confused by this. Why does Rust, a language that prides itself on making developer tooling so seamless, require this clunky 3-file workaround and manual HTML injection just to show a basic math formula?
What's fascinating here is that this isn't an oversight by the language designers. It is a classic engineering trade-off.
Really? A trade-off for what?
Well, Rust's entire ethos is built around performance, safety, and explicit control. By forcing the developer to inject the header manually, Rust refuses to make assumptions about how external JavaScript should be loaded into your documentation.
Ah, so it gives you total control.
Exactly. Furthermore, this setup allows them to utilize KTeX.
Hmm.
And as we established, KTeX is blisteringly fast. Rust willingly sacrifices a bit of initial setup simplicity on the developer's end to ensure that the end-user experience of reading the documentation is incredibly performant.
So it's philosophical. They prioritize the reader's speed over the writer's convenience.
That's the Rust way.
Even after you set it up, though, the author highlights some serious pitfalls developers fall into when writing the actual LaTeX in Rust. The big one is bracket escaping.
Brackets.
Yeah. RustDoc, the documentation generator, is inherently designed to interpret brackets like an open bracket, the word foo, and a close bracket as intradoc links. It is trying to be helpful by linking parts of your documentation together.
Which is great until you realize that in mathematics, square brackets are everywhere, right? If you want to write the nth root of x in LaTeX, the standard syntax requires you to put the n inside square brackets, \score, open bracket n, close bracket, then the x.
And RustDoc sees that bracketed n and thinks, let me create a hyperlink to a different page called n.
Exactly. It completely breaks the mathematical formula, leaving you with mangled text. You have to manually escape those brackets.
Just to write a root. And then there is the line break issue. In LaTeX, if you are aligning multiple equations vertically, you use a double backslash to create a line break.
Standard LaTeX.
But the Markdown parser that RustDoc runs on top of eats single backslashes as escape characters.
Right. So to get 2 backslashes to survive the Markdown parser and actually reach KTeX, you have to type 4 backslashes.
4 backslashes just to go to a new line.
Yeah, it requires developers to be hyper aware of the layers their text is passing through. Your code goes to Markdown, which goes to HTML, which finally goes to KTeX.
It's like playing a game of telephone with your own code. You have to whisper something completely bizarre at the start just so the correct message comes out at the end.
It's a great analogy.
If you are listening to this and you've ever tried to write a complex macro in Rust, you know the absolute pain of escaping characters. But, if Rust requires a 3-file infrastructure for speed, Python takes a completely different route.
Very different. Python leans heavily on its established documentation tool, Sphinx.
The Python setup is much more batteries included, which, again, reflects the language's core philosophy, right? To get MathJax working in Python, it requires just one extension added to the docs /conf.py file.
Just sphinx.x.mathjax. That single line handles all the infrastructure.
That is so much easier. The syntax for actually writing the math gets a bit nuanced depending on the file type, though. If you are writing in standard RST files, which Sphinx uses by default, you use the directive ... math : for display equations and math : for inline equations.
Right. But if you are using Markdown files via the MSTA parser, you just use the $$ and $$ syntax, just like Rust.
Okay, so the infrastructure setup is undeniably simpler in Python.
It is, but Python introduces its own unique set of deeply frustrating pitfalls. The biggest culprit, as the author points out, to the Python docstring itself.
Here's where it gets really interesting. Python docstrings are notorious for eating escape character.
Oh, they love eating escapes.
If you type \b or \n or \d in a regular Python string, Python natively interprets those as backspace, new line, and tab commands.
It assumes you're writing standard text.
So let's simulate this. Imagine you are a developer typing a beautiful LaTeX formula. You write \mathbef, open brace x, close brace, because you want a bold letter X.
Yeah.
You compile your docs, hit refresh, and expect to see a bold X.
But Python sees that \b completely ignores the mathbef context and obviously executes a backspace right in the middle of your string.
That is wild.
The diagnostic sign is unmistakable. The presentation points out that if you look at your rendered documentation and you just see the broken text mathbfx sitting there as plain code, instead of a properly bolded mathematical X, it is because Python swallowed your formatting before MathJax ever even saw it.
Forgetting to add the R prefix before your Python doc string to make it a raw string, so typing R quote, quote, quote instead of just quote, 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 is like writing an intricate letter in invisible ink and forgetting to hand the recipient the blacklight.
Exactly.
You typed it perfectly, the logic is sound, but Python just hides it.
It is a very common trap. And Python has another quirk with aligned environments. The ampersand symbol is used in LaTeX to align multi-line equations perfectly at the equal sign.
Right.
Well, in Python's Sphinx implementation, those ampersands must be strictly inside the \begin aligned and \end aligned wrappers.
Oh, strict wrappers.
Very strict. If they exist outside of that specific block, the parser throws an error. It demands absolute structural perfection, whereas other parsers might be more forgiving.
Knowing that both Rust and Python have these built-in traps raises a much bigger question. Do these toolchains actually hold up when you throw real, chaotic, professional-grade math at them?
That's the real test.
The presentation doesn't just stop at theory. The author stress-tested these systems by taking 5 dual-language mathematical projects, meaning projects existing in both Python and Rust, and updating their documentation side by side.
This is where the presentation gets truly valuable. We're not talking about simple arithmetic or basic algebra here.
Definitely not.
The author pushed these rendering engines into deep, highly complex mathematical domains to see where they would finally break.
They grouped the tests by escalating complexity. Let's look at the first level, RATTRIG and its Rust counterpart RATTRIG-ERS. This is a library for rational trigonometry. The author successfully documented foundational formulas for quadrants, cross, and spread. They even rendered Archimedes' formula.
Seeing Archimedes' formula rendered conceptually where the area A equals 4 com q2 minus the square of com plus q2 minus q3 is a perfect example of why this matters.
How so?
Because a developer trying to use this trigonometry library doesn't have to decode the variable assignments or reverse engineer the operational order from the code. They see the geometry rendered cleanly and can instantly verify that the function implements the specific mathematical property they require.
That makes total sense. But then they escalated the complexity significantly with Ilaugo and Ilaugo RS, which deals with convex optimization.
Oh, this gets incredibly dense.
It really does. They documented the core ellipsoid method algorithm updates, tracking variables like mg, omega, and tau. They also documented stable LDL transpose factorization.
For the listener, stable LDL transpose factorization is essentially a mathematical technique for breaking down massive, complex matrices to make them easier for a computer to solve.
It sounds intimidating.
If you write that factorization out in plain code, it looks like an unreadable maze of nested loops and array indexing. But in LaTeX, it renders as an elegant, easily understandable matrix.
Convex optimization also relies heavily on cuts, these mathematical boundaries that narrow down the optimal solution space. The author pushed the rendering engines to display these complex cut formulas. Why are these specific formulas considered such a rigorous stress test for a documentation engine?
Because of the visual layout requirements. The author documented parallel bias cuts, which involve massive, nested square root operations that span multiple lines, paired with complex fractional alignments.
Sounds like a formatting nightmare.
It heavily tests the engine's ability to align deeply nested fractions perfectly without breaking the visual flow or overlapping the text. It requires precision rendering that basic text parsers simply cannot handle.
If you tried to construct a parallel bias cut using Unicode, your brain would just give up trying to read it.
Oh, absolutely.
Finally, for maximum complexity, they tested LoGGen and ALDSRS, a library dealing with low discrepancy sequences. Here, they documented geometric mappings. including mapping an abstract 1D sequence into a three-sphere using the Hopf vibration formula.
Heavy stuff.
And they also documented n-sphere generation via marginal CDF inversion.
Marginal CDF inversion relies heavily on pre-computed statistical tables. The author was able to render equations showing exactly how table T7 is derived from table T5 combined with a complex trigonometric fraction.
Rendering the tables directly in the docs.
Yes, and this is vital. By rendering the tables, it brings absolute transparency to the statistical algorithms running under the hood. You aren't just trusting a black box function. The underlying statistical proof is rendered right above the code.
The presentation also mentions applying this to projects called Ginger and Prodigium, covering even more ground. So what does this all mean?
It's the ultimate showdown.
Yeah, when putting these intense geometry, optimization, and statistical formulas head to head, dealing with markdown telephone games, invisible ink doc strings, and manual HTML injections, did one language actually win out? Is Python better than Rust for documenting mathematical libraries, or vice versa?
If we connect this to the bigger picture, the crucial takeaway from this massive undertaking is that neither language won.
Wait, neither one?
Neither. The presentation clearly shows that while the docstring containers and the escape rules changed, the underlying mathematics and the latex content remained exactly the same. The core formulas were universally understood by both KTeX and MathJax.
The author added over 110 complex formulas across 28 files in the Rust projects. In the Python projects, they added over 80 formulas across 16 files. And the most staggering metric to me, 0 warnings were introduced in either language.
0. It is a remarkable testament to the stability of these tools. Both tool chains, despite their entirely different design philosophies and distinct pitfalls, handled the most rigorous mathematics flawlessly once they were configured correctly.
That's incredible.
The math didn't break. Only the developer's understanding of the container needed to adapt.
Over 190 intense mathematical formulas implemented across dozens of files and 0 compilation warnings. It really drives home the core lesson for you, the listener. Documentation is the user interface for your code.
It really is the UI.
Whether you are building a physics engine, a financial modeling tool, or simply trying to read a colleague's custom library, you now know that you have the tools available. You have MathJax for Python and KTeX for Rust. You have the power to make your algorithms legally legible.
You choose your language's toolchain, you navigate the specific escaping rules for Markdown or raw strings, but you must remember that the math itself is universal.
Universal, I love that.
Taking the time to render it beautifully isn't just an aesthetic choice. It is a fundamental improvement to the utility and accessibility of the software.
It absolutely saves everyone from the mental gymnastics of decoding asterisks and slashes.
This raises an important question, though.
What's that?
Looking at how flawlessly both of these completely different systems parse these dense, standardized latex strings, as AI models increasingly generate, review, and refactor our code, is this push for beautiful, formal mathematical documentation actually just for us? Or is formalizing these complex algorithms into strict latex equations the crucial bridge that will eventually allow artificial intelligence to directly verify a program's logic against pure, beautifully rendered mathematical truth rather than just guessing based on messy code syntax?
Oh, wow. Leaving the messy syntax behind and having a machine verify the program against the pure math itself, that is something to think about next time you are staring at a dense block of programming code wondering what secrets are hidden inside. Until next time.